Okay. Hello and welcome. This is Daedalus Creation. I guess you could think of me as a Daedalus type individual. So I'm here to tell the story of Daedalus, kind of, and to explain myself a bit and what I'm doing here and what this shop and goals with the channel are, hopefully. So let's start with Daedalus because, that's part of my inspiration. I grew up, and I grew up, still growing up. When I was younger, I enjoyed reading Greek mythology and about ancient Egypt. I wanted to be an archaeologist, and so I've always been fascinated with history and just ancient wonder. So Daedalus is the father of Icarus. For those that are familiar, you'll know the name Icarus, or Daedalus even. But for those that don't, Icarus is one whose story had him fall because he flew too high. So there's a little bit of proverb in with the story. But Daedalus was a creator, an architect, inventor. He's actually renowned for the Daedalic era of sculpture in Greek history, where he used lifelike poses and open eyes and more natural appearing subjects in his sculpture work. Another thing that I saw in reading about him, and I can't know the validity of it, but he's also credited with being the first mortal to make automatons or mechanized statues, if you would, or creations that were mechanized. So I found that fascinating. A bit of a tinkerer, as you might be able to tell from the workshop. So anyway, Daedalus is supposedly descended from some Athenian kings, and he's most famous for his adventures in Crete. He had to leave Athens because he was basically banished from the city. The story goes he murdered his nephew. It's either Perdix or I think it was Talos. Yes, Talos. See, his sons weren't interested in being creative like he was, and so he took his nephew amongst his pupils as an apprentice, and supposedly in a fit of rage murdered said nephew when it was perceived that this young one was going to outdo him. It was, I guess, a bit... well, ego gets the best of people sometimes, and, So, whether if Perdix died or not, because he was thrown from a rooftop, is unknown, because supposedly Athena stepped in and turned said victim into a partridge, which is interesting, because the origins for Daedalus are Athenian, and she was known to bless her subjects and descendants. So as royal bloodline of Athens runs through Daedalus veins, he was gifted more so than others might be because of this blessing of Athena. So anyway, he's kicked out of Athens. He goes to Crete. King Minos loves the clever guy. He's creative as heck and can make great things. He's credited with creating all sorts of architectural wonders. Offhand, I can't recall them all, other than a certain labyrinth, which we'll get into a little later. While there, King Minos he was married to Pasiphae. He was gifted a bull from Poseidon, a god. It was a great white bull, beautiful animal, I'm sure. And he was supposed to sacrifice it and didn't, because he was like, oh man, this bull's awesome. It's like, God gave me this bull. And, well, yeah, they had a pantheon, so, one of his gods gave him that bull and didn't sacrifice it. And so Poseidon asked, what's her name? Venus, the beautiful one. Dang, I can't remember the Greek name. Anyway, he asked his goddess of love sister to do a little magic on Pasiphae, Minos' wife. She fell in love with the bull. Like, she crushed on the bull. So much so that she kind of was like, I need someone crafty to help me out with my problems. And so she's like whispering in Daedalus' ear, and she's like, can you help me with this bull? And being a genius, dancing on the razor's edge of genius and insanity, while laughing at the danger, is one way I would describe myself. And apparently I would gather Daedalus was of a similar mindset, because he said, girl, I got you covered. As I mentioned, he was good at making automatons and sculptures that seemed lifelike, and so Pasiphae had a baby, Asterion, a boy, who was half bull and half human. Others more familiar would know him as the Minotaur. Now, I would imagine King Minos didn't know about this, because I am certain if I had king powers and the island was mine, someone help my wife commit such an atrocity would certainly have a lot of consequences that would be bad. I'll just leave it at that. So anyway, he's got this kid. He's figuring he's cursed for not having sacrificed the bull. And so, he can't have this little bull baby running around, So, he has him locked up in the Palace of Knossos, I believe it was. Let me see. Pasiphae, the bull. This is all of memory, so I'm just trying to get back to the actual name. Yes, Knossos, his palace at Knossos. So he was allowed to grow up there through his childhood. And the problem was, as a little boy grows older, they tend to get a little more aggressive, and they tend to like to fight it out with their friends and get their energies out in healthy ways. But when you're half bull, half human from a Poseidon gift bull sire and a rather randy Pasiphae, well, the consequences being, I guess, Asterion got to puberty and things got royally rough. So King Minos is like, Daedalus, you gotta hook me up, man. This kid is wreaking havoc. You have to make a maze that will just keep him lost forever. So in some of the artwork depictions, it looks something like a corn maze, where it's just a continuous passage that loops onto itself. Others considered it to be one with so many turns and avenues, one would get hopelessly lost in short order. So no one should be able to get through this maze. There were holes above this maze chamber where King Minos would demand from Athens, because Crete had defeated Athens, and as tribute they needed to send people there involuntarily, we will say, and some of them ended up getting put into the maze for the sake of Mr. Chompy, otherwise known as the Minotaur. Well, one of these people just happened to be, special sort of somebody. He was a prince from Athens by the name of Theseus, and he was on there with a mission, and it was to pretty much end this, hey, we put Athenians in this maze because we have this Asterion Minotaur thing. So, Theseus probably, because he's a prince, sharp-looking dude. The daughter of King Minos kind of falls in love. Her name is Ariadne. I think I might got that right. Not that I figured out English properly yet. Ariadne. So yeah, she falls in love with Theseus. She doesn't want him to get lost in this maze and just either perish from weariness or, encountering the Minotaur, which is likely. It's his maze. He probably knows it well. It's not an exit that he can get out of. So she's like, well, Daedalus is the most clever person I know. He made the maze. He must know how to get out. So she's like, listen, I'm in love with this guy that came over on the ship from Athens. Like, he's cute. He's supposed to be thrown into the hole. I don't like that idea. Can you please help a girl out? Daedalus is a helpful person. I love being helpful. And, if somebody's pretty and, I'm friends of the family and they're being nice and they've got a guy that they're crushing on and I could help out. I mean, I don't know that I'd betray the king. So I guess I'm more savvy in ways than Daedalus was in that moment, because he's like, yeah, girl, here's this ball of golden string. Just have him like tied off at the doorway kind of thing. He'll walk through. He'll follow the golden thread back. It's dark in there. You need something shiny, it's dusty. I'm sure there's cobwebs and dripping water. It's creepy and stuff. Minotaur. Ugh. So Theseus goes in there, takes care of business, gets back out again, runs off with King Minos' daughter before King Minos knows what happened. Then he finds out what happened. And he knows. I mean, come on. Dude built the maze. Nobody knows how to beat the maze. This one jerk runs off with my daughter that beats the maze. Daedalus, we're going to have a conversation. You can't leave the island. I got to go find my daughter. You're going to stay in the tower along with your son and forget leaving until I get back, dude. So he runs off on a ship to chase after his daughter, locks down the harbors. Daedalus is stuck on the island, locked in the tower, and he has no way to escape other than ingenuity and boredom. I do suffer boredom when I don't have enough stimulating environment and activities to do, so if I were locked in a tower, I would certainly get crafty with things. So he made wings, and this is kind of where my story really comes into play with Daedalus, because I've wanted to make wings for the longest time. I've had costume ideas over the years. I've liked to go to Renaissance fairs, and the idea of mechanical wings has always just been like, oof. When I've seen them online that people have made, they're handmade, and they're thousands of dollars, etc., and I'm just like, nah, I don't got that kind of money. So instead I built an entire freaking workshop, and yeah, okay, that thing's following me, cool. I didn't know if it was going to track. So I started off with cardboard and a sketch in a notebook, and this isn't put together currently. But then I took thin bits of wood and replicated the design. So there's one of my mechanical wings all marked up for upscaling, and then I cut a bunch of more wood that didn't become wings. But not trying to get away from a mad king either who's locked me into a tower. So I'll leave the really heavy one there because it's going to fall apart probably. I'm just going to embarrass myself. But here we go. This would be the beginnings of the wings I was making. I will complete those in further videos, but for now I'll complete the story and interject a little bit here and there. So, things follow me all over the place. Hang on a second. Up. Over? No, that's the wrong way, sorry. Yeah, let's go here, and then hand gesture, check that out. Wait, no, it's supposed to blink. I'm gonna stop doing, there we go. Well, whatever. Sorry about that. I don't plan to edit this. I'm just going to sit here. So anyway, he's got to get out of the tower. And he built wings. And he used beeswax and feathers in the creation. And he's in there with his son Icarus. And he warns him. He says, listen, if you fly too high, the sun is going to heat the beeswax. And the feathers are going to start falling out. And you're going to fall. And he's like, but if you go too low, the spray and foam from the sea is going to get the feathers all wet and heavy. And you're also going to fall. So you kind of have to find that middle ground. So follow my example. We got to get out of here because King Minos isn't going to let us leave this tower or land. So they take off, and it's exciting. They're flying, taking the drafts of wind, escaping their destiny, if it were. But unfortunately, Icarus, he got a little too enthusiastic, and he started flying higher. And in the real world example, I imagine he might have gotten above the clouds or something like that, but he got too high, flew too high to the sun, and the wax melted, and he didn't make it. And so Daedalus carried his son to a nearby island to bury him. And it's said that a partridge came and laughed and mocked him while he was in the process of this, grieving. Supposedly sent by Athena as kind of a reminder of his mistakes in Athens. I forget what the island's name was, but it was, I believe, named after Icarus. But I don't have it right here in front of me, so I won't go on. Eventually, Daedalus made it to Sicily, and he was said to have taken his wings and dedicated them after building a temple to Apollo. So the wings of Daedalus were gifted to Apollo. So he's cool, king of Sicily. Pretty cool though. His name was Cochlea, I believe. Anyway. Icaria is the name of the island where his son got buried, just so you know. Because, that was going to bother me and probably some others, I would gather. So, I believe it was King Cochlea that, Cocholus. King Cocholus was pretty happy to have Daedalus, crafty guy, around, and he offered him shelter. Meanwhile, Minos is making his way further and further along. He finally gets to Sicily. The reason he went to Sicily was to present a challenge. He'd been going from city to city, presenting a challenge and a puzzle with a great reward. The puzzle was to be able to thread a fine thread through a conch shell, or equivalent. So it's a spiraling shell. Maybe it was a nautilus shell? Either way. The only way you could do it is to be extremely clever and come up with a solution that had yet to be found. Except when he got to Sicily. Cocalus was like, I want that money, man. You gotta help me out, Daedalus. How do I get this thread through this shell? Daedalus was clearly a clever man to figure out that if he put an ant in one end, the point, with a thread attached to it, and then were to put honey or sugar at the open, wide end of the shell, eventually the ant would make its way through to get to the honey. And thus, you've now threaded a spiraling seashell that would otherwise be a very, very, very tough challenge. Can't imagine a human fingers doing that. But anyway, so King Minos is presented with the shell on the string, and he goes, "Oh, dude, nice. Where's Daedalus? I know your noggin didn't come up with that, man. Daedalus, I'm coming here for Daedalus. That's what the challenge was for. I got my whole fleet. Your island is pretty much going to fall if you don't give him up." So Cocalus was like, I don't like this. We don't do that way in Sicily. You come up to my doorstep knocking, presenting the idea of a challenged reward, and I met your challenge, and now you say the reward is I gotta give up my guy? Alright, let's get you comfy. Come on. King Minos never made it back home, and Daedalus was free to live out the rest of his life. Not certain in which text I read as for which accuracy it is, but it was either Minos, more likely the daughters of, not Minos, Cocalus. It was most likely the daughters of Cocalus that loved the gifts that Daedalus had been making for them, that added the extra hot to the spa in terms of water, and made some Minos soup. So that is the story of Daedalus. How do I relate? Well, I've bounced around a lot. I'm clever in a sort of Renaissance man way. I've got many, many interests. I grew up playing at my father's workbench in the basement, and I've come full circle back into a workshop I created for myself. I'm happy and proud to be here sharing what I can do. I don't just do woodworking, though. I'm a former chemistry teacher. I worked in IT, tech, and security way back in the day. I've done many, many things over the years. Currently, what I'm set up to do over here is not following me, huh? I guess the tracking turned off. Well, anyway, you'll see upcoming videos where I get into the chemistry more. Hopefully I'll do some of that tomorrow. But I enjoy many things. I've learned many things. I learn things every day. I am aware of many things going on in the world that many others won't be finding out on your mainstream news, for sure. I pay attention to astronomy and, solar weather, like when the sun is active and not. I love learning. I love learning about other places in the world, as well as what's going on in my own country and hometown area. So, as I build the channel, I hope to draw more audience, and I hope to, I hope to grow. That's really what I hope for at the end of the day. I pray every day Just, I'm not an atheist because I'm a chemist or anything like that. I got plenty of philosophy and other stuff in this noggin in my head. So, anyway, I'm not going to blather on for too long because honestly, it's like, probably 4 a.m. or something like that, knowing my brains. I can't stop them. That's part of what I'm challenged with. I tend to overthink things. I get in my own way a lot. So for me to take a breath is a healthy move. I was very apprehensive and hesitant and built this whole thing up into a bigger thing. But hopefully you feel I somewhat professionally executed my mission, shared the story of Daedalus, shared a little bit about me. I'm creative, I'm a tinkerer. I showed you the mechanical wings, I have other mechanical devices, and I'm just happy to be here and happy to share what I can. And stay tuned. And, I guess I should put the plug out there. Like and subscribe if you care to keep up with what's going on, because I'm not sure when the next upload will be, but I'm going to be getting more active as the days get warmer and nicer. I got a lot planned, so thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.